Ladies and gentlemen, friends of Hamilton, welcome to the Canadian Comedy Hall of Fame induction ceremony. We have a great show for you tonight. I'd like to welcome our host for the evening. You know him from The Red Green Show. You'll love him from his upcoming projects, The Trades and One Man's Treasure. Give a warm Hamilton welcome to Pat McKenna.
Boy. Oh, hello. Oh. Look at what a great crowd. This is great. I suppose it should only be fair if we all rise. Everyone can stand. We all know why we're here. Possum salute. If you're not familiar, just play along, watch your neighbor. Palm up. Quando, Omni, Flunkus, Moritati. Be seated. The games will begin. We got such a great show for you tonight because this is such a celebration to be celebrating comedy. Another person, a creator, and decided to get a bunch of people, and like Max Sennett did, and create a family of funny Keystone Cops. Only we had Possum Lodge Keystone Cops, and it was very different. It was sort of the same idea where you came along and it was fun, it was silly, it was dangerous, it was all of the above, and it was just so silly and so wonderful, the experience. And I hope a lot of you share that same feeling because we did every day doing it. So I just want to make sure that is impressed upon you as we get into this next tribute from a very good friend of ours from the show. Maybe you recognize him as Ranger Gord. But he's also here tonight as Peter Callahan and Mag Ruffman are here to also salute Steve. So we please give them a hand and welcome them to the stage.
Sorry we're late.
Hi, we had a little trouble on the QEW getting here, but we most certainly want to be here with friends and family. As Pat said, I'm Peter Callahan. Mag Ruffman, and I think the one thing that unites us all here today is the realization that Steve Smith left us too soon. He was really one of the funniest men I knew. He was a mentor, and above everything else, he was a good friend.
And you were his favorite.
Oh, I don't know about
I
that.
just think you should know that, because
Yeah.
nobody ever
Yeah, I
told
think I did,
you.
yeah.
But he told me
No.
Peter was his favorite. And what's that?
He's not dead.
He's not?
He's not dead.
Well, where is he?
He's off to your right, actually. He's not dead.
Where?
It surprised me too, I'll be honest. But
I was like, we were late.
He's right
We
here.
were late.
He's right here. Sorry.
Oh, this is funny. You know, I
I
think
was going to sing a ballad. Oh, gosh. Okay, well, anyway.
the one thing I think that unites us here this evening is the realization that Steve really deserves to be in the Comedy Hall of Fame. Right?
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
How long have you known Steve P?
Oh, long time.
Okay.
Long
How
time.
did you meet him?
Well, here's I know I've told this story before, but this I think we go back. Gosh, when did Comedy Mill start? 1986.
6.
Was it 6?
Yeah.
And Stephen Morag, after Smith & Smith, I guess it was, came and they wanted to do a new show called The Comedy Mill, which was a factory for comedy. And they wanted to meet different performers that they thought they might like, and so they went around from agency to agency, and I don't know where you did yours, but I did mine at my agency. And I was young, you know, I was much younger, and I was nervous, and so he gave everybody a prepared speech, which was smart, because he could then tell if we shared a sense of humor. Anyway, I did the whole speech, did the whole little monologue. They seemed to like it. It seemed to go well. But all the way through the monologue, I could feel this little rickety card chair that I was sitting on creaking a little and wavering a little. And I thought, it's not good. But I got through the monologue, and right at the end of the monologue, we started to talk, and the chair absolutely collapsed, and I went heel over ass backwards and landed on my back in this very first meeting with Stephen Morag. And of course, I was absolutely mortified and a young performer, and I had no idea what to say or do. And I said, Steve, I'm really sorry, that's very embarrassing. And he said, Peter, no, don't worry about it. You took it a lot better than the last guy. And that's when I knew we had to work together.
You used to, I'd hear it in the studio at the Comedy Mill. I would hear Peter go, I love my job.
Yeah.
Do that. We loved working with Stephen Morag. And, you know, Steve is deep, and he's funny, and he's difficult to get to know. But the best thing about Steve is that when Steve's around, everyone knows, and you know that everything's going to be okay. And that was the best feeling about working with Steve and Morag in the Comedy Mill.
Really was.
Okay, now that you introduce me.
I just want to say he started my career to a great extent and helped me buy my first house, and I owe a hell of a lot to Steve, and God bless you. And Morag.
There were so many great people involved with the show, and some of them aren't with us anymore. Mr. Wayne Robson and Joel, of course. And there's some great folks. We had Graham Greene. Gordon Pinson is no longer with us. He was on the show. It was the silliest environment I could imagine. And we're blessed this evening to have one of my favorite people. He came in from France this evening to be here. Not Paris, Ontario, the actual Paris. He actually traveled. So please welcome to the stage Mr. Winston Rothschild, sewage and septic sucking, Mr. Jeff Lumby, ladies and gentlemen. There you go, brother.
Come on, you guys. Pat McKenna's right here. So good to be here, I got to tell you. It was worth the flight. The smartest career decision that I ever made was accepting accepting an invitation to be a parade float judge at the Kitchener Oktoberfest. It was the early 90s. I was the morning man at Classic Rock Y95 right here in Hamilton. Thank you very much. Shout out to the Classic Rockers, okay? So too was the brand new Red Green show at the time. That was also happening. So the Hammer was well represented at the Kitchener Parade because Steve Smith also accepted the invitation, and that is where we met. It was one of the weirdest, most, it was just a strange thing. Like, we're giggling about it right now, but we were shuttled around for 2 days together, and we just hit it off. We were laughing at everything. We were shepherded around Kitchener-Waterloo in this giant double-decker red bus that was covered in pennies for some reason. I don't know the explanation. We laughed at that. And apparently there's nothing funnier than two grown men in lederhosen and feathered caps yelling at one another. So we laughed at that. But I gotta say, I owe it all to that wacky parade because afterwards, Steve and I stayed in touch. And Steve became a regular guest on the morning show at Y95. He would come in, I'd ask him to come in and do like red green things. So he'd bring in some, boat motors and jet parts and a tractor wheel and some duct tape and do a handyman corner. Now, understand, there's no video here, so a lot needed to be left to the imagination. And on another occasion, and I believe this was Valentine's Day, Red Green came in and offered the couples of Hamilton the opportunity to have their vows renewed in the comfort of their car in the Y95 drive-thru. And then one day, Steve called me up and he said, I need to take you for lunch. So I'm always up for a free lunch. And we get to the restaurant and we sit down and Steve looks at me and he goes, so, we're looking for a sewage sucking guy for the Red Green show, and your name floated to the top. And Winston Rothschild III was born. And what followed were 12 or 13 of the most fun and exciting years of my life. I mean, it was just incredible. Everybody's been talking about how fun it is to work with Steve. Well, I'm telling you, it was just incredible. And I got to be in a movie as well. I got tossed in with all these guys, these Second City geniuses, and to a person, they welcomed this radio guy onto the show, and that was Steve. Steve surrounded himself with like-minded people, and we all got along, and it was way too much fun. And throughout those dozen or so years, I'm going to tell you this, there was not one cross word, not one argument, not a yelling match, nothing. It was just pure joy from start to finish, cast and crew. And that, to me, is the legacy. So, Steve, thank you for making an enormously positive contribution to Canadian comedy and to the lives of the hundreds of people who were involved with the Red Green show all these years. And welcome to the Canadian Comedy Hall of Fame. Now, before we go any further, I direct your attention to the monitors. Let's see some Red Green stuff.
They got their 8th goal.
Look 'em in the eye, 'cause this is our hometown.
And then, geez, and I put that 23rd one in there. This is our home, and this is our town. This is our hometown.
Should I leave then?
No, you can stay if you like. Do you want to stay?
Yes.
Get in my pocket. No, don't. I guess I should tell when I met Steve. Just tonight. Lovely man, lovely man. No, it's been 35 years I've known Steve now. It's incredible. I didn't know I was that old. We started it was just the two of us, I think, for a week. We were shut in the CH studios and we were hardwired into the chairs. And Morag made us a lunch in a little brown bag that had my name on it. So, Max took his to school and Dave took his and I got mine and Steve got his. And that's how we shot the show. And we had no idea what it would do and how people would react to it. And it got canceled. And I'm sure Steve will tell you a lot of these things. And I don't want to go on to it. But the idea is that it was a very slow introduction to Steve and I, because I was doing the Herald kind of thing at Second City. He came to see the show and thought that'd be a pretty strange thing to stand beside. So we did that, and it took a little while for us to kind of find our rhythm. He just trusted that it could happen, and sure enough, boy, we sat down together, and as Jeff said, you laugh. You just cannot stop laughing. He's truly the funniest man I've ever met in my life. Truly the funniest man I've ever met in my life. Just the best. It makes a day fly by. So, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome this year's inductee to the Canadian Hall of Fame, your hero, my uncle, Mr. Red Green Steve Smith!
Old man Sedgwick had an extra pair of hearing aids, so he put them on his dog. And I said to him, is the dog deaf? He said, no, but it makes him think twice about barking. So that's the kind of humor we're celebrating here tonight. What can I say? First of all, I got to thank Pat and Peter and Mag and Jeff for all the kind, heartfelt things they said. I really appreciate that. You're my friends. So I want to welcome you all here tonight. I personally have a lot of friends here that I want to welcome, starting my best friend, my sweetheart. We met in high school. Our first date was on her 16th birthday. And this year we'll celebrate our 58th wedding anniversary. It's always the same number as the Super Bowl. There's got to be a joke in there somewhere, but I've never found it. And my sons, Max and Dave, are here with their wives, Nikki and Kelly. And of course, my grandchildren. I have three. No, I have six. I have 6 grandchildren. Yeah. Luke, Michaela, Charlie, Eva, Kiki, and Chloe. Love them all. My brother's here. My sister is here. We have some friends that worked with me in the television show a million years ago. And we have some boater friends from the Harbor West Marina even here. So, welcome everybody. I got to thank the Hall of Fame people for giving me this honor. I really appreciate it. They asked me to come up and say a few words about myself. So I sat down and I wrote out my whole life's story. And to be honest with you, I came off pretty well in it. But the problem was it looked like a resume, you know, and like they already gave me the job. Why would I bring a resume? And I read it over, and I thought it was boring, and I'm in it. So I'm just going to give you the highlights, okay? Here we go. In 1976, Maury and I were living just below the poverty line, which in those days was called Bar Lake Avenue in Stony Creek. Then out of the blue, Jim Scarrett from Scarrett Promotions hired us to be the opening act for Al Martino. Remember him? So we toured Canada, and when we got back to our apartment, Morag turned to me and said, "We need to have our own television show." And I thought, well, that's a fantastic idea. That makes way more sense than the biker bars and strip clubs I was chasing after. So I was instructed to contact the general manager of CHCH and get us a television show. So the man's name was Frank Denardis, great guy. I phoned Frank, I want to say 13 times, never got past the receptionist. So I decided to take a break. Unfortunately, I didn't leave the apartment, so Morag knew I wasn't doing anything. To which she responded, "Have you phoned Mr. Denardis today?" To which I responded, "No, I'm taking a break." To which she responded, "We need to phone him today." To which I responded, "Go ahead." So she went to the bedroom phone so I couldn't hear her. She came out 5 minutes later and said, "We have a meeting Tuesday." In the 48 years since then, everything that's happened in my career was made possible by that phone call. For the next 13 years, we worked together and we lived together and we raised 2 sons and a dog, and we got through it. Partially due to Canada's strict gun laws. When Smith & Smith was done, we did Me and Max with our 7-year-old and 9-year-old sons. That part of our life I like to call the child labor phase. And then we took a big step up. We did Comedy Mill with Peter Callahan and Mag Ruffman and Linda Cash. It was a much bigger budget, which meant we needed government funding, which meant we needed to make applications and do reports and all kinds of red tape. And when that show finished, I just wanted to do something simple and mindless, and the Red-Green show seemed like a fit. So Rick Green and I had the monumental task of turning a ridiculous character into a ridiculous television show. By then, CHCH had changed management, so when I went in to pitch the show, I said, "I need you to give me enough money that I can do something, but not enough that you care what it is." And away we went. And it was a bare bones production. We had a tiny production crew. We did everything ourselves, even the promos. My favorite one was, "Watch the Red-Green show. When you've already wasted your whole life, what's another half hour?" So the show debuted in March of 1990, and after 5 episodes, they took it off the air. So I phoned over to see what was going on. They said, well, the ratings were better than we expected, so we decided to hold it off until the fall when we can get more money for the ads. I believe it's the first time in the history of television a show got canceled for doing too well. But at that time, CH was having some financial difficulties, so we were canceled at the end of our 2nd season, which triggered the miracle. I started getting letters, I'm talking 1,000 letters a day, from people saying, "Do whatever you have to do to keep this show on the air." There was a used car dealer on Barton Street, and he had a big sign out there saying, "Forget the whales, save Red-Green." And these were Canadians supporting a Canadian television show. Back in those days, when a Canadian TV show went off the air, there was usually a street party. So I was encouraged to try to keep it going. It was a bumpy ride. hooked up with a couple of executive producers. That worked for a little while, but then halfway through our 4th season, their financing plan fell apart. I said to them, well, what do I do with these invoices I've got from the cast and crew? And they said, don't pay them. Wow, I never thought of that. Instead, I got rid of them and brought my brother in, and things got better. Way better. Yeah. So by then we were on about 100 PBS stations, and they would have me come down there and help out with their begathons. So I would say things like, PBS is educational television, the Red Green Show is recess. Or, if you're enjoying the show, send a little bit of money in so they can keep it on the air. If you don't enjoy the show, send in a lot of money so they can afford to buy something better. And I met thousands of Americans. When people ask me, what's the difference, do you think, between Americans and Canadians? I tell them this story. Okay, there was these 3 American hockey fans, and they heard that Toronto was playing Montreal. So they come up to Toronto to see the game. But when they got here, they found out the game was actually in Montreal. So they're down at Union Station buying train tickets, and standing behind them in line are 3 Canadian hockey fans going to the same game. Well, they get talking. They get up to the counter. The 3 Americans buy their tickets, but they overhear the Canadians. The Canadians only buy 1 ticket. The Americans say, well, how does that work? And the Canadians say, well, just watch. So they get on the train. The Americans sit down. The Canadians run to the back of the car. All 3 of them go into one of the restrooms back there and close the door. Well, now the train pulls out of the station. The conductor comes along collecting the tickets. He gets to the restroom. He knocks on the door. He says, ticket, please. Door opens about that far. A hand comes out with a ticket in it. We're done. Now they go and they watch the game. Now it's time to go back to Toronto. They're lined up at the ticket counter again. The Americans this time only buy 1 ticket. They look over at the Canadians. All right, your turn. And the Canadians say, nah, that's okay. We're not going to buy a ticket for the ride back. And the Americans say, well, how does that work? And the Canadians said, well, just watch. So they get on the train. The Americans run down to the back of the car. All 3 of them go into one of the restrooms back there, close the door. The Canadians run to the back of the car. All 3 of them go into one of the other restrooms and close the door. After about 10 seconds, one of the Canadians comes out, knocks on the American door, and says, ticket, please. So for season 5 and season 6, we were on Global, and then in season 7, CBC finally picked up the show. They had a new program director from Winnipeg. His name was Slocko Klimkew. How's that for a name, huh? Slocko Klimkew. I used to tease him that he was probably conceived during a Scrabble game. Well, it turns out Slocko had gone into a jumbo video with his teenage sons to rent a couple of movies, and they came out with one of my specials. And before you knew it, I was on CBC and stayed there for 9 years. It was my decision to end the show. It would have been 15 seasons, 300 episodes, and about a month later, I was turning 60. I know an exit ramp when I see one. So the final episode aired in the spring of 2006, and I went away. And a few years later, Random House asked me to write a red-green book. And I said, yeah, okay. The book was called How to Do Everything. And what I didn't realize is that when you write a book, you have to then do a book tour. So they wanted me to go to, Saskatoon to sell 10 books. I said, I'll buy 11 not to go. and then I got thinking, well, rather than just do a book tour, why don't I create a one-man show and use it as a PBS fundraiser? So I called it my Wit and Wisdom Tour, because that way, if I said something that I thought was funny and nobody laughed, well, we could just call that wisdom. Opening night was in Minneapolis, and from the first second I stepped on the stage, it was the greatest experience of my entire career. There were no TV executives, there were no advertising agencies, no corporate sponsors, just me in a theater with my audience. After 20 years, I was finally meeting the people I was actually working for. And the comments after the show, I remember a young guy said to me, "You make me look forward to getting old." Can you believe I took that as a compliment? A mother of four said, "You tell us what we need to hear and make it funny so we'll listen." And soon after that, Brian Edwards of Rocklands Entertainment said he wanted to do my tours. He wanted to be the promoter for my tours. Brian is here tonight. We hit it off right from the start. Over the next 8 years, we did 4 North American tours together, all successful and tantrum-free. It was a great experience. I did my final tour in 2019. I called it "This Could Be It." It was the best one yet, but again, it was time for an exit ramp. But when you think about it, you know, the off-ramp for the old road is also the on-ramp to the new road. So here we are, 18 years after the show was done. We've just formed a partnership with Answer Media. It's a company out of Kansas who are now managing our streaming platforms and our websites and our online store and our Facebook page and our YouTube clips and our social media and a bunch of other stuff I don't even understand. They actually flew up from Kansas. They're here tonight just to make sure this is real. And for the past 4 years, I've been doing a Possum Lodge podcast with my son, Dave, and some characters from the old TV show. And some brand new characters. And now we're expanding that to include his brother Max as we produce brand new animated episodes of The Red Green Show. My retired friends say to me, "Why do you keep doing stuff?" And I have to go way, way back in time to one of those rare days when I was getting along with my father. And he told me something that stuck with me. He said, "Your job in life is to cross a river. And there's a bunch of stones that you can step on to do that. Now, once in a while, you'll step on one and it's really shaky, and you want to get off it right away. But the dangerous stones are the big, wide, flat ones, because you'll be tempted to lie down in the sun and go to sleep and forget about crossing the river. I don't know if I'll make it all the way across, but I'm definitely going to the next stone." Okay. So, you know, again, thank you all. Thank you all for my friends, old and new, and thank you to the Hall of Fame for doing this. I really appreciate it. And if I could leave you with one thought, it would be, do at least one kind thing every day, even if it's just not saying what you're thinking. Oh, and one last thought, keep your stick on the ice.